Former President Donald Trump facing 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. New York prosecutors say Trump was at the center of an alleged catch and kill scheme to suppress negative stories about him in order to influence the 2016 presidential election to benefit his electoral prospects. Mr. Trump is calling the case as a sham. His lawyers say they'll move to get the charges tossed out. And to break down all of those charges and the case against Mr. Trump, we are now joined by partner and managing attorney in the Bloom firm, Mr. Arick Fudali. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you've had 24 hours now to study the charges and the case being made. So what really stands out to you the most?
There's a lot, certainly, that stands out. Specifically, I would say when you look at the statement of facts that accompanies the indictment, they really do a great job of breaking down what actually they are alleging happened and how Donald Trump was involved in that. For instance, there's even a reference to an audio recording that allegedly exists where him and Michael Cohen are discussing, the amount of the hush money. So it's really interesting to read the actual statement of facts and see how the alleged scheme breaks down, and also that it's not just these Stormy Daniels that we've heard about, but there were some other perhaps hush payments that were made to looks like a doorman to cover up a child out of wedlock. And there's also the involvement of the CEO of the company that owns National Enquirer. So very intriguing to actually read the statement of facts and see, beyond the legalities of what's charged, but really factually what they're alleging.
Well, the charge at the heart of the case, falsifying business records, usually amounts to only a misdemeanor. So how did these become felony charges?
It's a great question. It looks like it's some good creative lawyering, if you will, from Alvin Bragg. And what it looks like they've done is there is a system in which the misdemeanor for this charge, the falsifying business records, can be elevated to a felony if the falsifying of the records is done in furtherance or to cover up another crime. Now, what's interesting about the indictment is it doesn't specify what this other crime is. However, there are references to election fraud, campaign finance fraud, and also tax purposes. So my guess and my assumption based on the way the indictment is written is that they've elevated this to a felony by saying that these falsification of records were done to commit perhaps campaign fraud, election fraud, as well as tax fraud.
But how do you think Mr. Trump's attorneys are going to approach his defense?
Vigorously, aggressively, I would say they're going to approach his defense. I assume there's going to be a lot of delay tactics, which is sort of common in this arena, but I assume they will delay, and I assume also they will try to dismiss the case on legal technicalities, not on the merits, not on the factual merits, but on some legal technicalities, perhaps, via motions to dismiss and say that the legal theories don't hold up or something along those lines. I would be surprised if that was successful. I assume that there's been a lot of, thorough legal research behind these allegations to make sure they would stand up to scrutiny or motions to dismiss.
And, last night during a rally, Mr. Trump lashed out at the judge in the case, as well as his wife and daughter. Could we see a gag order issued at some time, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I would not be surprised at all if this judge issues a gag order. From what I understand from the arraignment yesterday, the judge gave not a gag order, but a warning to Trump's attorneys saying, tone down the rhetoric in so many words, no more inciting violence, no inciting chaos or anything like that, no threats, and posts along those lines. And certainly Trump did not listen to that, based on what was said during his rally after the arraignment. So I would not be surprised. Certainly the judge is probably aware of those, and I would not be surprised to see perhaps somewhat in the near future, based on the sort of rhetoric that Trump uses and the reaction to his rhetoric from his most loyal of supporters. I would not be surprised to see some sort of gag order that Donald Trump will have to be very careful not to disobey.
Well, now the arraignment came the same day as a federal appeals court ordered Stormy Daniels to pay Mr. Trump's legal fees in a separate defamation case over a tweet. Now, the adult film star will now have to pay more than $121,000 to cover Trump's defense. Could that ruling actually impact this case, do you think?
Probably not. That probably would not be admissible. Maybe the defense could somehow find a way that it would, maybe attack Stormy's credibility or say, there's some sort of money bias here. But, there's separate cases. The civil and the criminal arena, have different standards of proof. So I'd be very surprised if the defendants were able to sort of maneuver a way in to use that as some sort of evidence, against these allegations.
Arick Fudali, thank you so much for joining us again today. We certainly appreciate all of your insight.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.